State of Cannabis.
This is the State of Cannabis News Digest, a roundup of this week's key developments in the cannabis industry. Our top stories.
This week in the news, cannabis policy is shifting across the country, from expansion to enforcement. Alabama begins raids under a new ban on smokable hemp, while Florida tightens rules for medical marijuana patients charged with drug crimes. California raises its cannabis tax to 19%, pushing legal businesses to the brink, and Colorado permanently bans a hemp operator for selling illegal THC. In Massachusetts, a major testing lab is shut down for falsifying contamination results, while New Mexico launches a cannabis enforcement bureau to rein in illegal sales. Hawaii expands access through telehealth, but faces backlash over warrantless access to patient records. Delaware, Missouri, and Nebraska navigate zoning, equity, and licensing as they prepare for new or growing cannabis markets. Stay with us. Full details on these stories coming up next.
And now here is the deeper look at the key events in the cannabis world this week.
On the 1st of July, Alabama began enforcing House Bill 445, banning the sale and possession of smokable hemp and synthetic THC products. The move follows a court ruling rejecting a lawsuit from 4 hemp companies seeking to block the law. Business owners say the ban hits hard, with some losing up to 90% of their inventory. Governor Kay Ivey signed the bill into law in May, and enforcement has already started with raids across multiple cities. The law is just beginning, and in January of 2026, the Alabama Alcoholic Beverage Control Board will take over regulation, implementing new licensing rules, THC limits, and packaging requirements.
California's cannabis industry is facing another hurdle. As of July 1st, the state raised its excise tax on cannabis products from 15% to 19%. For dispensaries and producers already grappling with falling sales, this hike couldn't come at a worse time, as legal cannabis sales have dropped 30% since their peak, and around 60% of the market still belongs to illegal sellers. Meanwhile, AB 564, a bill to roll back the tax to the previous 15%, is still pending in the Senate. While Governor Newsom supports it, time is running out for struggling operators who feel they're being taxed out of existence.
Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser has permanently banned a Colorado-based cannabis operator, Christopher Eoff, from the state's marijuana and hemp industries. Eoff, who owned the company CBDDY, was accused of selling illegal high-THC products labeled as hemp, falsifying lab results, and failing to verify customer age. The Colorado State investigation found some products contained 35 times the legal THC limit. Eoff has since filed for bankruptcy and moved to Arkansas. As part of a settlement, Colorado waived an $820,000 fine, but left the door open to reinstate it if Eoff breaks the agreement. As of this publication, the website for the company is still live, but all content has been removed. This case underscores Colorado's increasing scrutiny of hemp-derived THC and sends a message to businesses nationwide to be careful while navigating the complex cannabis regulatory landscape.
Wake up, tune in, and stay ahead. Every Saturday morning, we bring you a fast, 10 to 15-minute dose of cannabis news from across the nation. No fluff, no digging, just the top stories that matter, clearly explained. Subscribe now and make your morning smarter.
In Delaware this week, cannabis reform is colliding with local politics as the state prepares to launch its adult-use marijuana market on August 1st. Lawmakers passed a bill that could dramatically expand where cannabis businesses can operate, even as long-standing zoning rules and municipal bans threaten to stall access for many license holders. Senate Bill 75, approved by Delaware's General Assembly, strips counties of the power to impose overly restrictive zoning on dispensaries and cultivation sites. It sets a statewide standard, reducing mandatory distances from schools and parks, and blocking municipalities from enacting near-total bans through local ordinances. Supporters of the bill say it's a necessary fix to de facto prohibitions that have choked the market before it even begins. Critics call it a top-down move that undercuts local authority. At the heart of the debate is a new industry that's ready, but not fully able to launch. Just 10 dispensaries, mostly existing medical operators, are slated to open next month. They've paid steep conversion fees, while hundreds of smaller and equity-focused applicants remain in limbo, slowed by zoning battles, background checks, and regulatory backlogs. Ironically, the very governments that now oppose statewide zoning limits are the same ones accused of stalling equity entrants through excessive red tape. Governor Matt Meyer, who has voiced support for cannabis reform, now faces a pivotal decision: whether to sign the bill and override local pushback. If he does, it could unlock access for more than 125 licensees and signal that Delaware's adult use market is open, not just in law, but in practice.
This week, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a sweeping healthcare bill with big implications for Florida's medical marijuana community. Buried deep in the legislation is a clause that says any patient or caregiver charged with drug trafficking or intent to distribute will have their medical marijuana card suspended on the spot. No more dispensary visits, no more legal protection, and if the charge sticks, the Department of Health must revoke the card entirely. Getting back into the program won't be easy. The person has to finish jail time, probation, anything tied to the case, and then reapply with a notarized statement confirming they've satisfied every condition. Lying about it is also a crime. Supporters of the bill say the rule deters diversion of medical cannabis into the illicit market. Critics argue it punishes patients before they've been found guilty and could push people toward unregulated products. The law lands as activists race to place a recreational marijuana measure on Florida's 2026 ballot, in a campaign the governor has opposed, calling public cannabis use putrid. Whether this new restriction will curb abuse or simply complicate life for legitimate patients remains to be seen. But one thing is clear: Florida's path to broader cannabis access just became a little steeper.
In a move that blends progress with controversy, Hawaii Governor Josh Green signed House Bill 302 into law, reshaping the state's medical cannabis program. The bill allows patients to receive medical marijuana certifications through telehealth and gives doctors broader discretion in determining which conditions qualify for treatment. That's good news for patients, especially in rural areas. But a late addition to the bill has ignited backlash. The new law also gives the state's Department of Health authority to inspect patient medical records held by certifying providers, without a warrant or even suspicion of wrongdoing. Advocates and lawmakers alike worry this could deter patients from joining the program, especially given marijuana's continued federal illegality. Governor Green had previously warned the provision could be a grave violation of privacy, yet ultimately signed the bill without further clarification. The law also enacts stricter enforcement rules, creates a felony penalty for unlicensed dispensaries, and mandates cultivation licenses starting in 2028. Meanwhile, other cannabis measures in Hawaii in 2025 included new cultivation rights for caregivers and a faster expungement path for marijuana offenses. But legalization remains stalled, for now.
In a move to protect consumer health, the Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission has suspended one of the state's largest cannabis testing labs. Assured Testing Laboratories was found to have consistently misreported contamination results, sometimes omitting failed tests entirely, and other times relabeling contaminated products as clean. The commission says the lab's actions endangered public health and undermined trust in the legal market. Between April of 2024 and April of 2025, Assured handled more than 22,000 samples, accounting for a quarter of the state's testing. Its failure rate was just 0.05%, which is 90 times lower than the industry average of 4.5%. Investigators discovered that the lab failed to report over 500 contamination events and misrepresented results in thousands more. The commission has now shut down the lab and all affiliated agent registrations, pending further action. The lab has 21 days to request a hearing. This marks the first such suspension in Massachusetts and comes amid growing concerns nationwide about cannabis lab accuracy and safety compliance.
Don't scroll for hours to stay in the know. We've done the work for you. Every Saturday morning, we break down the national cannabis news into one quick episode. Easy to follow, hard to miss. Subscribe now and never fall behind.
In a pivotal step for Missouri's cannabis industry, the state has selected a national consulting firm to perform a deep economic analysis of its marijuana market. The Department of Health and Senior Services awarded a $238,000 contract to Cannabis Public Policy Consulting of New York. Over the next year, the firm will examine whether Missouri should issue more licenses for cannabis cultivation, manufacturing, and retail, especially in underserved and economically distressed areas. Missouri's cannabis market generated $1.46 billion in sales in 2024, making it one of the top-performing new markets in the country. Yet critics say limited licenses have stifled competition and excluded those most affected by past cannabis criminalization. The study's findings could lead to expanded licensing, with at least half of new licenses going to micro-businesses operated for over a year.
Nebraska has taken a step toward establishing its long-awaited medical marijuana marketplace. Governor Jim Pillen signed emergency regulations that clear the way for business licensing, meeting a deadline set by last year's voter-approved initiatives. The rules, in effect for 90 days, set strict conditions, with only one dispensary per judicial district, a ban on flower and edibles, and restrictions on product types and licensing eligibility. Critics argue these measures go against the voters' intent, especially the ban on whole plant cannabis and limited access across rural areas. While patients can legally possess up to 5 ounces of cannabis with a doctor's recommendation, they won't be able to obtain it legally in Nebraska until dispensaries are licensed later this year. Public comment is open until July 15th, and formal regulations are due by October 1st. The coming months will determine whether Nebraska delivers a compassionate, accessible program or one bogged down by barriers.
In a shift for New Mexico's cannabis industry, state officials are moving from expansion to enforcement. On July 1st, the state launched a new Cannabis Enforcement Bureau under House Bill 10, giving a team of certified officers the authority to investigate, seize, and prosecute illegal activity in the marijuana industry. The move comes as concerns grow about the number of dispensaries and about youth access to vape products and mislabeled cannabis. Lawmakers and regulators say the new bureau will tackle these issues head-on by conducting audits, enforcing compliance, and cracking down on businesses that bend or break the rules. With monthly sales plateauing and black market concerns still looming, this new phase may be critical for stabilizing and legitimizing the state's cannabis economy.
Mike Tyson is once again in the spotlight, this time not for boxing, but for cannabis reform. On the 1st of July, the boxing legend joined other athletes and entertainers in asking President Donald Trump to lead on marijuana policy. Appearing on Fox News, Tyson criticized the current classification of cannabis as equivalent to heroin, calling it ridiculous. He says cannabis changed his life and could change millions more if federal laws were updated. The coalition's letter to Trump asks for 3 reforms: rescheduling marijuana to Schedule 3, clemency for those jailed on nonviolent cannabis charges, and banking access for cannabis businesses. With over 500,000 people locked out of loans, Tyson says it's holding the industry back. Biden was being criticized for stalling cannabis reform, and advocates believe Trump can gain political ground by acting where his predecessor did not. With DEA delays and mixed signals from Trump's cabinet picks, the cannabis world is watching to see what comes next.
This was the State of Cannabis News Digest, available weekly. You can listen to us on all main podcast platforms. To make sure you don't miss out on the latest updates and in-depth analysis of the cannabis industry, be sure to subscribe to our podcast. By subscribing, you'll get notifications for each new episode, helping you stay informed and ahead in the ever-evolving cannabis market. Join us next Saturday for more insights. Until then, keep thriving and stay green.